February 28th, 2017. We all remember where we were on this day. The day that one typo brought the internet to its knees and cost Amazon Web Services 4 hours of downtime and $150 million, all because of one typo, one easily avoidable mistake. I'm here to argue that our products are only as strong as their weakest link. Firefighting is inevitable until we view our products with a holistic lens and as more than just a sum of their features. Regardless of where we are on our journey today, there is one thing that we can all agree on. Downtime hurts. But just how much does it hurt? On average, it costs $5,600 per minute of downtime. But that's not the only cost we pay. We pay in time and sanity when we fight death by 1,000 shoulder taps, or when we play ticket hot potato. We pay in reputation and productivity when we sell things that we can't build, design things we can't code, and code things that we can't deploy or maintain in a secure way. How many of you have achieved 99.9% uptime? Hands up? Yeah? That's a little, okay. It works out to 42 minutes per month. I was going to say let's try that again and be honest, but it feels like you already were. Assuming it takes about 15 minutes to discover the outage, 15 minutes to triage, and 15 to develop and push your hotfix, we're already at 45 minutes, which is definitely an SLA breach. Hyperventilating a little bit there. Planning for our products as a whole, including the critical internal services that they rely on, helps us to treat other symptoms, such as outages and the security vulnerabilities. And the Promised Land isn't just a place on a map that we can reach or an aggregate of the perfect architecture and technology. It changes from team to team and from time to time. For some, it's containerizing our legacy applications, as I'm sure Andrew's going to be very happy to talk to you about in the next hour. For others, it's empowering our developers so that we can build tools to better support them. If you could do anything right now without time or resource constraints, what would it be? Where do you want to go? What problems are jumping out at you right now? This is our happy path. It is our ideal place. And this idea is our Promised Land. The Promised Land is built from the ground up. We take into consideration the different lenses that our teammates have to paint the big picture. Your ideal state will be very, very different in a small startup who's just getting going or in a larger company that's more mature. It's important to approach this with an understanding that every single person is doing the best that they can with what they know and what resources they have available. Every single one of them and every single team will have a different opinion on what this Promised Land is. And that tapestry of experiences and thoughts is what's going to help us to define our destination as well as our guiding principles. Does this scenario seem familiar to some of you? I'm willing to bet that everyone in this room has been here one way or another. Whether you're the sysadmin that's looking at your laptop going, please don't be down, or you're the manager that's thinking the exact same thing. It's pretty scary. It's a really scary feeling. It's even scarier when you're in healthcare. Not only is downtime critical, it could be fatal. Hospitals, homes, doctors, and nurses all rely on us for their day-to-day encounters. We might be the reason that they can't get their forms, that they can't see a doctor, that they can't find out what's wrong with them. Last year, we went out to go celebrate and talk with one of our coworkers who had left 2 years ago. He actually left before I started at Think Research. It was great. We were catching up. We were talking about all the things we'd done. We started out talking about this dreaded sticky note wall that I think a lot of you are probably familiar with as well. We might have some work on it. It might be tracked. It might be updated. Maybe it just doesn't even exist, and maybe it's only for one product. We moved all the way to getting to Kanban boards, which was pretty cool at the time. And then we got to sprints. From there, we managed to plan sprints, well, multiple sprints in advance, and even months in advance. We got to the point where we were planning quarters. It might not have gone perfectly, but it was still happening. We talked about how we had this very painful manual deploy process where we set up some VMs in data centers, and there were a bunch of pets. Everything was unique. It needed a lot of help. It needed a lot of hand-holding. But then we'd made it. We'd made it to successfully running Kubernetes in production. I see you over there. We managed it all with Terraform. We'd even wrangled our wild west of organizational structure and services that had previously lived unchecked in a to-do list that we hoped that maybe one day we could make it to. It was a rare moment of peace for me to be able to sit back and really appreciate how far we'd come. As my former colleague enthusiastically pointed out, we had made it to what had once seemed so far out of reach. We had made it to our promised land. If we want to break the cycle of firefighting based on the loudest voice in the room, take charge of our journey, and build really cool shit, which I know you do, you're here, why wouldn't you? We need to shift our perspectives and view our products as more than just a sum of their features. Our products are only as strong as their weakest link. How many of you can draw an owl now? It's helpful, right? As DevOps enthusiasts, we spend a lot of time discussing and dreaming about the key principles that we want to achieve, such as infrastructure as code and pipelines and continuous delivery. But we often neglect the journey that we took and all of the questions and discussions and problems that we ran into that made us reach it. We leave out our why, which hamstrings our how. Why did we start with 2 circles? How did we draw the rest of the fucking owl? Without these details, it's nearly impossible to share what we did and how we learned it so that other people can also do it too. Making mistakes automatically. DevOps isn't a one-size-fits-all, which should come as no surprise, given we can't even nail it down a definition of what it is. Are we SREs? Are we glorified sysadmins? Maybe we do the database work. Are we evangelists or are we advocates? Do we have a space that we actually work in, or are we just that catch-all for all that shit the other teams don't want to do? Just try reading any handful of job descriptions about DevOps, and it becomes clear pretty quickly that there's no actual answer. Everyone has a different idea of what we do, including ourselves. Somewhere during my journey, I made the conscious decision to make sense of my experiences, pain points, and my own assumptions by developing a practical framework that I'm hoping to use going forward to avoid some of these problems in the future. I started retrospectively by asking what steps did we take to reach the goals that we had set. I worked back from there to say how did we decide that these are the problems that we needed to solve. And from there I asked why. Why did we set these goals? What pain led us to say this needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved now? Our culture is our cornerstone. It's our foundation that we build everything else on top of. It's where we build our vision. Process implementation and improvements is our next layer. It's our commitment. It's us saying, we're ready to do this, and we want to start, and we want to be better. And finally, we get to move on to the fun stuff, the tech. We get to make our decisions based on pain points that we've identified, and then we get to go forward with it into the future that we want to live in. Phrasing this a little bit differently, you get your cape, you wear your cape, and you fly. Thanks. We're getting our cape as we get ready to embark on our journey and discuss this vision. We're preparing and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do and where we're going to go. When we're putting it on, we're empowering ourselves. We're saying that I am ready to do this. I'm ready to get out there and take my first step. And finally, when we get to the fun stuff, we get to fly, because that's obviously the best part of this slide. So where are you going? Why? It's very easy to fall into a culture of duct tape and bubblegum, blindly racing from one problem to the next one. It hurts, it's stressful, it's impossible to track, and it leaves us constantly living in the past, wishing that we could just make something proactive. Why can't we just build that thing we want to fix while everything's on fire? How do you do that? If we want to sell things that we can build, design things we can code, and code things that we can deploy and maintain in a secure manner, we need to acknowledge that building a stable product comes long before any code is actually committed. Our culture is the core foundation that everything else rests on, and without building it, we will never fly. Defining our destination helps us to be aligned on where we're going. If we wanted to go on a group vacation, where would we start? Do we want to go somewhere warm? How about somebody wants to see some mountains? Well, now we've narrowed down the decisions and we have an idea of what vacation or what trip we actually want to take. Creating a culture of curiosity gives our team the space to actually voice opinions and be validated. It lets us hear what everyone else is thinking. And being curious starts with why. It helps us to build empathy, and it gives us valuable insight into where we're going and how we're going to get there and who we're going there with. Treating learning as a currency is also a key part of our culture. It allows us to fall down and get back up again. Keep trying. Remember, when I said that it's important to keep an understanding that everyone is doing the best they can with the knowledge they have at that time, for anyone who needs to hear this, I'm going to be honest, it's me too right now, making mistakes is okay. Not getting it perfect is okay. As long as we learn from these mistakes and take that experience and build something better. Tell me if this variation sounds familiar. Team A needs some work from Team B, who says, well, that's not actually us. I think you mistook us for Team C. They're the ones that actually do that thing. The ticket gets passed around for days, maybe even sprints, maybe even months. It's a problem. Getting these teams, or some representatives from them, into one room and just saying, what do we need and when do we need it, will help us to get these timelines and requirements figured out from the beginning so that we don't have to play this game, because nobody wants to play this game either. And last year, we were building out a brand new product on a brand new cloud using brand new technology. It was really exciting. It was really fun. It was a huge learning curve for every single person involved. And due to the speed we were building at it, we thought, you know what? We'll just let the people do the things that they're best at. This developer is going to build his code because he's fast at it and this is his thing. And this ops person is going to build the infrastructure because that's our thing. And we didn't really talk as much as we probably should have. Our dev team requested a pipeline from us as they were losing a lot of time doing manual deploys, and even more if the deploy actually went wrong. We had experience building pipelines for other teams and other companies, but still took some time to refresh on best practices and what other companies are actually doing. We spent a lot of time discussing, whiteboarding, planning, writing, fixing, and doing what we thought was the best solution. We really, really did, and we made some opinionated decisions regarding this. It worked, sometimes, in some scenarios, but in others, it was a huge headache. They wanted to deploy in a way that we hadn't anticipated and therefore we hadn't built for. It led to a lot of frustration and tension as we tried to figure it out, as well as a lot of lost productivity. All of this could have been avoided if we had just sat together and discussed openly what each side wanted from this tool. Process is about finding your weaknesses and your bottlenecks and proactively working to balance those out. Making procedural changes is buying into your discussion and your decision. It's saying, we're ready for this, I want this, and we're going to start setting ourselves up for success. We're fastening on our cape, and we're getting ready to take flight. Here, we should scrutinize how we communicate, how we share knowledge, and how we track and plan and prioritize our work. Bottlenecks. Warning. Where are your things getting stuck? What causes them to slow down? Going to do a hands up thing again? Put your hands up if you've read the Phoenix Project. Nice. Good representation. Find your Brent. Where are your knowledge silos? Where are things getting lost? And make a process to make sure that it doesn't keep happening. Priorities are important. Setting a process about who decides priorities, or even what the priority actually is, helps us to make sure that we're doing work that matters in a timeline that we need. Knowing truly is half the battle. And we need to make an effort to build team rapport, encourage curiosity, and support communication with each other. I definitely understand how this slide feels like it could have been in culture, and maybe it should have. But for this slide, well, for this talk, I'm going to say that it shouldn't be. Defining and following processes about how we're going to communicate and make a safe space to give feedback to each other is important, and it also makes sure that we have a time and a method to actually do it. Following my earlier example of the pipeline we delivered to our developers, it didn't quite take in their needs. We tried to figure out ways to have open communication to and from the different teams. We continued to adapt and try new things and take in different planning and unplanned work. And we got feedback about how that felt. Which leads to my next lessons learned. How to avoid death by 1,000 shoulder taps. It's real. How do you handle unplanned work in firefighting? How do you manage the chaos of people, communication, and prioritizing? Well, first we tried a stopwatch timer to track our shoulder taps because we had no idea how much time we were losing to it. Spoiler, totally didn't work. It was a really bad idea. Our devs felt like they couldn't talk to us because they were wasting our time. But we didn't want that. We wanted to be able to help them. So next we tried a help request form. Also a bad idea. It made it feel like there was this giant wall between us and the devs, and they no longer felt like they could even talk to us, because now they had to just go on the internet and send a form in instead of coming over and being like, hey, how do I run Docker? So finally we tried something else. It still wasn't quite perfect, but it was a huge improvement. We tried this thing that I affectionately call the Shark Tank meeting, where we would have each of the different teams come in, and for about 10 minutes, they would pitch the requirements or needs that they have going into the upcoming sprint. And for one of the first times, we actually had visibility into what they were doing and what they needed from us. So now that we've defined pain points and set up some processes to help with fighting shoulder taps, giving time management, and doing better, yes, thank you. I'm going to grab this quickly. We're finally ready to actually build stuff. A mistake we commonly make in our industry is to just jump straight into tech without clearly defining the root cause or the solution that we need. What are we trying to solve? Will this tool actually do it? Do we need a new tool, or is it something that we already have? If it's the second one, but the new tool is better, how do we actually move the existing work to the new tool? What are the risks? Taking a holistic view will help us to see that our products are more than just a sum of their features. Don't be a bird and just shove your code out of the nest hoping it's going to fly. It won't. It's going to fall. We need to nurture and care for our code that we don't show to the users, as well as the shiny, cool things that the users get to play with. No matter how clean or fast our application code is, if our critical internal services aren't well maintained, we will have downtime, and then nobody sees the shiny, fast features. Beware tool sprawl. Multiple tools for the same purpose create additional strain for developers as well as the teams. They're a risk for adding new knowledge silos as well. We were really, really excited when we found out about Kubernetes. I see Devin laughing because he lived this experience. It was great. It was fast. It kept our Docker containers alive, and it orchestrated them, and it did all these really cool things that we couldn't do before. And then we found this thing called Helm. Wow, this is great. Faster. You want this now? You got this now. Databases? Bam, done. Elk Stack? There it is. It's right there. Kafka? You got it. Except it wasn't great. We didn't understand it. We didn't understand the way it was built. We didn't understand how it ran. So we had a lot of difficulty in troubleshooting. And often the Helm chart builders weren't the same company either. There's nothing like finding out that all of your crash logs have just been silently disappearing for a month. Kind of needed those. So let's recap. If we want to sell things we can build, design things we can code, and code things we can deploy and maintain, we have to acknowledge that building stable products starts before any code is committed. I'm sorry. There we go. We start with the culture, we work our way up to process, and then we make it to the fun tech stuff. But where do we actually start? This is a lot of information to process. Find what hurts. Everybody wants to fix being in pain. It's easiest to build motivation and curiosity when we find something that we're already suffering from. Get a variety of people and roles together, and get different perspective and requirements, and just sit down and figure it out. Anything that makes communication or teamwork harder or acts as a barrier to entry likely will not land the way you want it to. Fail fast is great, but failing smart is faster. Just do it. Just get it done. Whatever that pain point was, just get started. It's always easier to fix a failure than it is a non-attempt. We need to stop looking at failures like a waste of time and productivity and take the value that we gained when we learned something new. Because now that we failed, we knew something we didn't know before, or we wouldn't have done this and failed. While we might not know what the fix is yet, we're one step closer to actually fixing it. Hello, my name is Jacquelyne Grindrod. I've recently become a top 30 under 30 dev in Canada. I work at Medstack, which is a company where we build a platform for other healthcare applications to be deployed into. And we cover most of the HIPAA compliance and security requirements. This lets other companies actually just get up and building way faster. And I'm a professional DevOps for 4 years now. And thank you. I'd love to keep this discussion going, but I'm not going to do it on stage. Please come find me with any questions that you have, and let's talk about it. Email me, LinkedIn me, whatever works. Thank you. This has been my second time speaking, and I couldn't have asked for a better team of speakers, organizers, teammates, friends, or a better audience. Thank you for attending my talk, and I look forward to our upcoming discussions.